Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I am very excited to have as my guest, Douglas Katz. And let me tell you a little bit about Douglas. He's a West Point graduate, disabled Army veteran, and adaptive product innovator on a mission to change lives in the kitchen. With an extensive career spanning military, telecom, and lending, Doug has brought his problem-solving skills to a new frontier, adaptive technology. Inspired by his personal experiences as a disabled veteran and as a caretaker for an octogenarian, I had to practice that one.
That's a 25-cent word.
That is. Somebody that's over 100, right?
No, 80,
Is
over
that
an
80. Over 80. Oh, crap. I'm close.
Octo. I threw it out
Octo,
there.
8. That is true.
80. Yeah.
I should have remembered that 8 sides. Okay, yes. So Doug set out to create NULU knife, an adaptive kitchen tool designed to empower people of all abilities to cook safely and confidently. Doug leads a talented team of over 50 professionals, most of whom are veterans, as they work to make independence in the kitchen accessible to everyone, from seniors and veterans to anyone facing physical limitations. Join us as Doug shares his journey, the story behind NULU, and his passion for designing tools that support independence and dignity at every stage of life. We're going to talk about evolutionizing the kitchen knife. Please join me in welcoming my guest, Douglas Katz.
Thanks,
Douglas,
Vicki.
I love to cook and I love kitchen tools.
Right.
I think I gained this from my mom's mom. But so I was so excited to see your design and thought, oh God, I have to have one, and thinking of all the people that I need to get them as gifts for. But let's talk about, before we get into that, the 2 easy questions I always start with. So share with everybody what is the place you live right now. Where do you call home?
I live in Trout Valley, Illinois. It's a small suburb outside, about an hour 15 outside of the city. And the claim to fame was it was originally the Hertz estate when he owned Yellow Cab. So our swimming pool is like actually the Hertz mansion pool. The mansion burnt down, but it's the pool that goes back to the 20s and 30s. So it's a very unique place that we just got very lucky to find.
How cool is that? Oh my goodness. So whenever I have guests, I always like them to talk about their journey, to just really demonstrate that it isn't a straight line that takes you to success, that there are pivots and there are challenges, but those challenges can be turned into opportunities. So share about your journey. And
Well, one thing I did want to clarify, and I actually changed my profile after another podcast. It's not over 50 in number, and I'm making a correction because it's relevant. Most of my team, if not all of them, are over 50 years of age. Which has actually been a key to our success in many ways of how we've really had an accelerated move from ideation to bringing the product to market. And your question was, how did we come up with it, right?
So just talk about your journey of for you personally.
Perfect.
What really led to this passion you have, and explain some of the challenges that you may have encountered.
So I am a disabled vet, as I said, and some of my disabilities are rated and acknowledged by the VA, and some are not, right? Everybody, if you're of a certain age and you've done enough things, probably a little bit disabled. So at that particular time, I'm like you, I love to cook. and I didn't just happen into making a knife. My wife had gotten me for, I think it was my birthday one year, a class on how to make knives. And it was like a week-long class. And I loved it. I really liked the fusion of sort of art and utility. I think like if I'm going to
Mhm.
make something, I like it to be useful. And during a particularly bad flare-up, I had my shoulder rebuilt about 18 months ago. Um, I I couldn't cook because my arm was hurting. I couldn't really make a traditional knife because I couldn't swing a hammer and do a lot of things with it. So I was just sort of out in my shop, and I had been playing around with some circular type shapes, and I keep a lot of scrap things around, like a lot of
Mhm.
people who work in different mediums. And there's a circular saw blade, and I said there's something to this, and so I took some time to take what I knew about the ulu, which is a an Inuit knife, and say, well, like, why does it work? Like, is there something you could do better? And that was this. And I know there's some people listening, but I believe there's some seeing as well. So what we've done is we've created a circular knife with ultimately the entire arc is the cutting surface, and it provides really direct cutting force. And I did that because what I realized is the pain I was feeling when I was cooking wasn't necessarily evenly distributed amongst all kitchen tools. If you use a straight knife, and I was going to pull one out from underneath, but you can know when you use a knife that when you apply force, that force isn't transferred.
That's
It's
too low.
transferred sort of like an S, right? It's through the
Hmm.
knife into your arm, and you feel it: hand, wrist, elbow, shoulder. If you're able-bodied, meaning you have no issues, it still sucks. You're tired after doing a lot of cutting. If you have any issues, then then it can be it can sap your independence. It can prevent you from doing any of that stuff.
Hmm.
So that helped us determine that as a team, when I came up with the original design, right, it was just me. And I brought it inside, and my family, like, I had some side hustles, and they endured me. But when they saw this, they said this is something really cool. And my dad, who was 88, I think at the time, kind of understood it too. So I knew I was onto something. And the journey has really been, I like to say that it's somewhere between Oppenheimer and Forrest Gump, where I didn't really know enough to not do certain things in a good way. And I really followed sort of an organic approach to, hey, how do I bring this to market? But found, and this is where the over 50 part comes in, because it's just my contemporaries, found people who understood the vision of better designed adaptive tools,
Hmm.
understood the use case because they understood the problem because many of them have issues,
Right. They live it.
and was able to assemble an amazing team. It's like we're like the over 50 Avengers, right? Like, I've got everything sort of part of this vision, like all the different aspects that you would need when you start a team. And it's nice because I think that there's a wisdom and a patience and everything with people of that age. So, like, from a leadership perspective, it's really kind of easy because everybody's just doing what they should be doing. Nobody's greedy because at this point, really, it's more of a focus on legacy and change and positive impact. We all want to make money, but I think our focus, as you sort of look down how much time you've got left and what you've accomplished, I think everybody is around this. How can we make a lasting impact on our communities and individuals with a product that makes money? With the big vision to be more adaptive design should be nice. The challenge we're running into, and this is the knife, is this is a prototype. The handle won't be white. It looks pretty cool. So while we were really focused on the disabled community, we're having people say, well, why are you calling it an adaptive knife? I don't want to buy an adaptive knife, but it looks cool. So we're kind of trying to figure that part out in the big picture.
Yeah, just see what the marketing is, who's
See what
your
the market
target
is. Yeah.
audience, right? So, can you just um you really, if we talked about it, you had a varied career
Yes.
and including the military. And so how has that background of
The
all the
military.
things that you've done, the military, lending, all that kind of stuff,
Right. No, yeah.
helped you in this?
It's interesting. That's the first time I've heard the question asked that way. And it hit me when you did, is like, in many ways, it feels like the military taught me the right way to do things. Corporate America taught me how I feel, and it's my opinion, the wrong way. And now this third act is about taking what I learned in the military and building companies and organizations in a way that is antithetical to what I did not like in corporate America. And it's fine. There are many great people in corporate America. I know that that's not how I'm wired, but it seems to be very risk averse. It really seemed more about how do you not lose your job versus making a huge
Mm.
impact or making, either societally or internal to that organization. It just never seemed like it was about how can we make everything better. It's if that doesn't go right, am I going to be looking for a job? And I
Yeah.
think that's it's a disappointing thing to where we've become because I don't feel it was always that way, but that's the way
Yeah.
I feel is now.
I know one of the projects that I was on, um, it was brand new technology, not done. So you couldn't look back and see, well, how did they do it and what could we tweak or what? It was just inventing it,
Right.
and just as you're doing right now. And um, as opposed to getting rid of somebody who was risk familiar, I guess, loving to take a risk and willing to take a risk. We had to
Well,
get
and
rid
can
of
I,
a
can
couple
I
people that,
can I
sorry.
key in on something there? Is I think risk, like people don't get it. I think military people do, especially ones, like I was Army, right? I was a ground pounder, right? I was an artillery guy, but you fight outside on the ground. And every choice that you make, and I was lucky enough to never fight in combat, but there's risk to everything that you do. So I think that there is a healthy, it's like balancing risk with that decision. It's like a healthy relationship. That's what I was looking for. A
Mm-hmm.
healthy relationship to say each one of these things has risk. What is the most calculated one for the best outcome? And I think that when the risk aversion goes too far, then you can't really evaluate it the right way. And the sad part about it is that echoes past
Mm-hmm.
the job you're in, right? So if you're in a job
That's
that
right.
is heavily risk averse or in a organization that is, you tend to be that way, I think, outside of what you do. I think you tend to consume more than you create as well, because that ends up part of what kind of fills the void. And I'm sort of an
Mm-hmm.
evangelist in find, I've heard find your passion. I don't think what it is. I've heard now, I listen to Scott Galloway a lot, and I like that he talks about find what you're good at. And I think finally, after years, I have found what I'm good at. And it was a
Mm-hmm.
rediscovery. I think in the military, I went combat arms because I liked uncertainty. I liked thinking on my feet. I liked having to
Mm-hmm.
build good relationships with people because you're in it together, right? Like with a company
Yeah.
that sort of has an established, you're trying to defend that established position. But when you're in like a startup or you're an entrepreneur, you're in a battle all the time, but not a bad one. I just think it just creates
Mm-hmm.
so much more energy, innovation,
Yeah.
and everything else.
Yeah. And it really, it gets, I think, something that a lot of companies are looking for is that loyalty, that almost that feeling of I'm part of this
A
product. I'm
vision, right?
part of this solution. Yeah. And so that makes you more dedicated to it, more I guess it's now part of who you are and what you do, as opposed to I'm just somebody that comes in and does this stuff on a list and then I go home and
Well, and I think
you know.
it's interesting because from a leadership perspective, it the only way that works, I think, is if you're a servant leader. And that's the other thing that the military, especially West Point, teaches you. And it's interesting, right? If you look historically, like the term samurai, right? That warrior, it means servant. So I think it really comes down to understanding that you are in charge of that enterprise for the betterment of the enterprise. And I don't even really like to call it
Mm,
my company. because it isn't. And one day we were sitting around talking, a couple of my partners and I, and one of them brought up, they said, how do you feel like this was your invention? How do you feel now that all these other people have opinions on it? And I said, when they came on board, it wasn't my invention anymore. It wasn't my thing anymore. I may have
Yeah.
invented it, but what it is it's the professional DNA of everybody who joined that. And as we're looking, because NULU is part of sort of a bigger enterprise where we're looking to bring adaptive and other products that fill certain white space to market. And we always were about moving from place to place. And I think you can't do that when you're so attached to a possessive view of
Mm-hmm.
something that everyone else is part of. And I think, I think you see it everywhere now. Like the term
Mm-hmm.
my, unless I'm saying it's my opinion, rarely comes into the discussions within our company. And it's the same for everybody else. People talk
Mm-hmm.
about their accountabilities, but it's our company, it's our endeavor, it's all of that. And that's what makes it unique. And
Yeah.
that's the only way I think, because we're fighting an uphill battle trying to make people think of knives differently. You will not achieve that if everybody doesn't feel the ownership and connection with every part of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, what surprised you most about the journey for Nulu and bringing it to market? And were there any lessons that you
The, the,
learned
the,
along the way?
the thing that totally surprised me was what we were talking about in the beginning, is that the road to success is the openness one, is
Mm-hmm.
being out there and talking to people. Because once you start doing it, everybody talks about these businesses that they wanted to start. Oh, but I don't want to talk about it, right? And once I started talking about it, that's how I built the team. That's how I've gotten into several accelerators. That's how things happen. And I think that was like that lightning bolt to say, unless you think this is the only thing that you will ever achieve, get out there and do it, because the network is your net worth is used a lot, and it's true. And it just really and what really surprised me is how much I undervalued my network prior, because I was in a corporate job, right? Your world is
Mm-hmm.
that island that you're on. And now, as I'm doing this, the generosity and the support and everybody involved has been
Mm-hmm.
amazing. And frankly, when I started doing some videos, I was sending thank yous out to the people who originally calling out to their organizations, because so many people helped along the way. And that's the best advice. Is the other thing I've heard a lot is that success is in the agency of others, and people feel that about you, right? People tend to think of it from the leadership perspective. So I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to be a great leader and succeed if the people below me succeed.
That's
What they
exactly
forget
right.
is the people that also know that, mentors, other leaders, people in
That's right.
positions of influence, want to help you because they know that their success will eventually be in that agency. And I think that it's the thing you always know, like, hey, I should lose weight or whatever, but you don't do, and then you do it and you're like, oh, that's the secret. And that's what I haven't been doing for a while. And that's why I should be doing it.
Awesome. Such great advice. So, have you, um, how do you see this adaptive technology evolving? You talked about it just briefly.
Right.
We have this awesome knife now. What else do you see, and how is this network that you just spoke about informing you of where to go next? And
The way that it all started with looking at this knife and saying, how do you sell it? What does the market look like? So, do you sell it at a particular chronic condition, or do you try and find where there's intersection points? So, I invented it. We made prototypes. We were working with it, and we were just trying to figure out as a team, like, how do you market this more broadly? And it led us to a concept that we call the ability curve. And what occurred to us is that there are shared symptomatic profiles across chronic conditions, aging, and even young age. So when I was in the Army, the way that the Army evaluates your ability to do something is a task with certain conditions and standards, right? It's a very, very clear expectation and a clear outcome of success. So I started thinking about that, and I said, okay, is the disability related to that? Should it be related to that? And
Mhm.
as that developed, we were thinking it's not binary. Disability is not binary. There are too many kinds of disability, right? You could have minor disabilities. You can have cognitive. I'm ADHD. Some people call it a disability. In the entrepreneurial world, I think it's a superpower. But as we started to look and say, well, wait a minute, as we're looking at what makes MS, like Parkinson's, like osteoarthritis, like age-related diminished coordination, strength, and dexterity, we said it's got to be a big Venn diagram where you start where everything is related. And one of the interesting things that we figured out was, by an adult definition, children are disabled. If you're a child at the right development point, you're able-bodied. But if I give you a traditional knife, a 10-year-old, let's say.
That's exactly right. I was just thinking that.
So we started to look at it and say, the other thing is, can we bridge the understanding, right? Because when disability is a pejorative instead of a shared condition and state, it breaks it in half. I was on a podcast yesterday with a young lady who is disabled, and her perspective was right on line with this, is that, like, it isn't just a state of being, and you may move in and out of, like, once my shoulder was reconstructed, it solved some problems. Some other problems arose from it, right? Like, so it's not this state of being, it's a journey. So this ability curve allows us to say, this is a bigger market. In fact, if we were to take just definitionally strength, coordination, and dexterity, our market is like 118 million people, right? That's the total addressable market. That's not our service obtainable market, but it's the total market. So then what that says is adaptive design good design? And when you make that jump, if you look at what's out there right now, if you looked at a knife that's made for the disabled space, someone took a blade and put a handle on it and said, there you go. Well, it might not solve the problem. Like having a horse or like a perpendicular handle doesn't change how the force is transferred.
No.
And what we're finding is people who, I'm going to use able-bodied, like the design too, because they're getting it that way. Wait, this might just be a better way to cut. And so I think where this could be headed and where we want to take it is, where are all these problems that we can solve? And we're looking for innovation out of the communities that we're communicating with the knife. There are some great ideas out there. And the parent of NULU, which is an entity called Red Leg Innovation, we're hoping as we can grow NULU and potentially bring a couple of other products that we're moving toward MVP on the market, that we can also find ideas in the communities that we serve, find out what makes it good for them. Maybe they're building something out of PVC, pool noodles, and cement, rubber cement or whatever, and say, wait a minute, can we commercialize that? Is there a bigger market? And can we design it to where it doesn't look like a torture device? And then everybody wins, because the big secret is adaptive is assistive for people who don't have problems. Yeah. And most of the time, it can also help you prevent those problems. We can help prevent repetitive stress injuries for people who either in a career preparing food, or who do it regularly as a home activity. So it really opens up this whole thing. And we like to think adaptive, assistive, and adjacent. So on our roadmap, when we have our roadmap meetings, we're trying to figure out, one, what market can we move into for more mainstream acceptance? Because mainstream acceptance means subsidizing in a lot of ways the design that helps the disabled communities. But we also want to find what adjacent ideas are there. Is there other things that take what we call, let's say, force transfer geometry of how that knife reacts because the control area is in line with the cutting area? Well, what other lessons can we learn? What other products could come from that? Yeah. So it's a lot of like peeling back things to then have it grow so that we get sort of a tree of different things that we can bring to market.
One of the things as you were talking about that, because I did think right away that I have two grandsons that are 5 or 6 and 9, and I'd like to teach them to cook. And whenever I do things that have a knife, I am a little bit cautious, especially with the 6-year-old.
Well, and it's interesting
right away,
that, because we we are struggling a little bit on that communication, right? Because the argument isn't, and one of my teams is a lawyer. It's not that we're making a safe knife; we're making a safer knife, right? And sometimes it can get muddled, right? Because you don't want to get sued, but it really is encouraging to me when I hear somebody say, I really would like to do this. And I also understand that inherently this is a risky thing. And frankly, talking to my contemporaries, kids need a little more risk these days. A band-aid or stitches never hurt anybody. I'm not saying that's what we shoot for, but it's a representation of growth, understanding risk, and things like that. So I love to hear it when people say stuff like that.
So one of the things that I think that if you haven't already started doing it, you should come up with a prototype of the case for that. Because I know I have some knives that are
We have
very
a sheath.
sharp. Yeah, and so then that's if it can be stored safely, and then that takes away some of the issues as well. But I have a mom that's in a wheelchair, and I know that knife would be great for her. My husband, just like you, both of his shoulders had to be replaced, and
Wow.
he had for the first one where it was just partial, but he couldn't even until it got to the point where the doctors would actually do surgery. He couldn't even lift his hand to eat, so he was eating
Right.
with his opposite hand, and
Right.
and so I guess thankfully for him, he doesn't cook,
Right.
but
Right.
it could be a definite issue. So all in all, I just really think that this is a great product. I'm so excited that you're bringing it to market, and the information that you've shared about leadership, I think, is really important in to be part of this discussion. So how can we really think about that next step? Are you doing focus groups to find new products
You know,
out
we're
on the internet?
we're actually, it's for another products or for NULU itself.
For the well, both, I guess it is.
So for NULU, we're really hoping to have it a grassroots feedback loop. We've gotten very, very integrated with disabled advocacy groups, adaptive service offices around in different states. Each state has one. And they, as a community, the disabled community, when given the opportunity to be vocal and provide good feedback in this type of setting, is great. So we're hoping to get a lot of feedback from them, as well as just people buying it. I think in this day and age, it's just so easy to do that, especially when people like the product. They'll give you feedback. And in terms of other products, it's sort of a mix. Right now, we're more internally focused on ideas, and I'm a person who, it's all day long, ideas are kind of coming at me. So
Mhm.
we've created a structure where we document stuff and rate it and figure out, like, is it commercially viable? Is the market there? What do we need to do to bring it to market? What's the market size? That kind of thing. But a very, very quick flyover. And we're building a list of all these different ideas, some that intersect with things we have, some that don't. And the way we look at it, if it's like an 8 or higher, we're going to try and bring it to market, right? Because that means things are in place. Right now, as we're really focused on NULU, it's a little hard to do. So we're trying to build that bench of different products. If it's a lower one, then it's how do we get it up into a higher score, or is there something inherently in the market right now that doesn't work? We have one that it without going into much detail, it touches on how I should say the obstacle is how the insurance companies work, right? Because they code things, and it's a disruptive product in the bracing industry that would take something that would either be consumable or a non-consumable item and changes that. Well, all of a sudden, when you're trying to deal with big bureaucracies and you're trying to deal with uh, large organizations that have a stake in not being disrupted, then you look and you say, well, maybe now's not the right time. Maybe when that market changes in a way that it's a little bit easier to be disruptive, or with something like that, where we want to look at, is there a military application where their evaluation and purchase, how they do things might be different. So we try and look like, is there an on-ramp? And if there isn't, but it's still a good idea, we may not patent it, but we're going to put it on the back burner because something could happen. And we say, we have a product for that.
Pull that up. Pull that
Yep,
up.
yep.
Yeah. Well, time has flown by. I think that we've got a lot of information, and most likely people are out there that want to connect with you to find more about NULU, how to get it, as well as maybe give you some of their ideas.
Oh, hell
Talk to
yeah.
you about the process, which we didn't get into too much, but you use Kickstarter, and we had a discussion earlier about
Yes.
the fact that my brother, who invents things, uses Kickstarter all the time. So if you have any questions about that process, you certainly can reach out to Douglas. So I'm going to share, as always, my slide. If you're just listening, you can go to my YouTube channel, Vicki Noethling. If you haven't already subscribed, please do, as well as my findyourleadershipconfidence.com website, where they will always be in the show notes. So for those that are listening, the website that you want to go to is Linktree /Doug Katz. That's LINKTR or period, whatever, .ee/Doug Katz, KATZ. Facebook is Doug.Katz.9, 9 like the number 9. Instagram is d.m.katz. LinkedIn is Douglas Katz. And TikTok is at Nuling, NULUING. And Threads is at d.m.katz. I'm going to turn it over to Douglas. He's going to talk to you about what you can find when you go to that Linktree site, as well as where he spends maybe the most time for social media. So Douglas, it's always yours.
Absolutely. Linktree has every applicable link. So anything from this will be on there. Articles that I've written. I do some writing. There's some white papers that I've written about force transfer geometry and the ability curve, some of the things we talked about. It's also got all the relevant links for NULU, the site where people can order, and if they want to see the stuff from the Kickstarter, again, as well as all the links that you refer to. So that's usually the best place because I keep it most up to date. Second only probably to LinkedIn. I find that my social media time it seems like LinkedIn is a more positive place these days. So I spend a lot of time there because, I think that it's just where my focus is, bringing NULU to market.
Perfect. Yep, absolutely. Well, Douglas, it's just been such a wonderful time to have a conversation with you. You did bring a lot of great leadership advice and insight, and I really am looking forward to buying your knife, and I hope that the others will take heed and try it. As I said, even if you're not a great cook, having a great knife makes chopping so much easier. It's so
Can I end
worth
with
it.
one thing about that? And
Yeah.
this is something I'm really, really, really zealous about, is like the meal shouldn't be about the preparation part. Like it's fun, to have people around and all that, but the easier you can get through, like even the preparation, if you break it down, like chopping, is nobody likes that. So the ability to have people embrace what you're talking about, cooking and then sharing a meal, we need more of that these days, right? Because it's a very, very human thing to do that. And I think that it can be lost if we don't regain it. And hopefully this becomes part of it, because people who might not have cooked before can do it. And people who've lost the ability, hopefully that they'll reconnect.
Yeah, awesome. As always, I remind everyone that life is a journey, and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling, signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.